know you heard me on the radio. Flexing, she loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K. I know you heard me on the radio. Flexing, she loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K.
Night Watch listeners, Scarlet Knights fans, welcome to another episode of Night Watch. I'm your host, Larry K. It's a late night show. I actually had something going on earlier in the night. I had to watch on Peacock, watch the replay, not the replay, but watch very delayed the game. So I was able to finally watch the whole game. Wanted to obviously watch the whole thing to be able to talk to you guys and do a good job here. So watched the entire game, did see Rutgers escape Jersey Mike's Arena tonight, 80-76. Penn State visiting Piscataway. Rutgers comes away with their first Big Ten win of the season, moved to 1-1 in conference. They win their Big Ten home opener. They lost their Big Ten road opener, obviously, to Ohio State. Much needed win. Rutgers moves to 6-4 on the season, and now they can kind of collect themselves. They have some out of conference play to handle before gearing back up for conference play. But I had said there were a lot of issues with this team over the last several weeks. I don't want to say several weeks, but several games. Rutgers obviously had dropped 3 out of 4 games, were reeling in a lot of ways, and it might have even been worse than that. But Kennesaw State, obviously A&M and Alabama, and then lost to Ohio State as well. Just a rough go of it, and there were a lot of things that were concerning, specifically defense, what identity this team had, getting the right players the ball on offense and trying to play with the right identity. We saw with the football team this season that Joe Harasimiak and Coach Giano had to tear it down to the studs, as he put it, and figure something out. It does look like Coach Peichel tore this thing down a little bit and figured something out. And I think really 2 things stood out to me and were really key here. There were other things too. We'll talk about all of them. First off, Ace Bailey, we've been talking about it all season on Night Watch. His rebounding prowess, his defensive prowess has to be on point for Rutgers to be competitive. If you look at Ace's game tonight, if you look at the places where he shined, if you look at specifically where Ace made the biggest impacts, he's making impacts as if he's playing the 4 spot, right? He's making impacts as if he's a forward. And I understand Ace has an outside shot. I understand he can put the ball on the floor. He can make a lot of things happen. And with his athleticism, you'd love to see him, further outside. And obviously, when he is playing the quasi 4, it's kind of like you have, maybe 4 guards on the floor and 1 5. That's becoming more prevalent in the college game these days. But the fact is that Pike went with a completely different starting 5 today. And his starting 5 was Ogbole, Jamichael Davis, which I think was probably a surprise to many, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, and Jeremiah Williams. And when you have Williams, Harper, and Davis on the floor, it's, by default, Ace becomes the 4, basically. Ace becomes the forward. And I think he made his presence felt on both sides of the ball, playing like a big man player. And I don't mean that stylistically per se, but where he made the impact on the floor for Rutgers really was as if he was a forward playing the 4 spot. Following up shots, rebounding just viciously, crashing the boards, putting the ball back in the net, and being a presence down low was an absolute boon for Rutgers. I think the second thing that stood out today, and I got to give props to some of our message board friends, because on the message boards all week we've been hearing all these different ideas from different posters, and one of the ideas was, hey, how about getting Dylan off ball a little bit more? And I noticed Jeremiah Williams bringing the ball up a lot more this game rather than having Dylan with the ball from beginning to end of an offensive set. You had Jeremiah Williams bringing up the ball. You had Dylan, got the opportunity to get off ball. And the key I wanted to talk about is number one, Ace playing more and making more of an impact like a forward. And number two is Dylan Harper getting freed up a little bit to create on offense and to find a shot and be able to work his way against the defense instead of bringing the ball up from jump, getting the ball in his hands, and getting double and triple and quadruple teamed at times. It was just a smart idea to get him off ball a little bit. It allows the offense to create a bit because the defense has to be aware not only of who has the ball but where Dylan is, and then you have to account for where Ace is. And I thought it made a big impact. It changed the way Rutgers played basketball today. It was a good job and a good adjustment by the coaching staff, a coaching staff that I have been well documented in kind of calling out this year. I mean, a lot of voices out there saying we just don't have Big Ten players in the supporting cast. A lot of voices just saying we simply can't get it done. And I was sitting here saying there's things you can do to improve your play, and some of those things happened today, which was nice to see. Good to see that. Dylan Harper leads the team again with 24 points. He's absolutely a stud. He's, I believe, number 3 in the country overall with scoring, leading freshman scorer in the country, everything you want him to be. 24 points again today. Ace Bailey follows him up with 15 points. Jeremiah Williams had 8. Davis had 4. Bole had 2. Lathan Somerville had 6 points. PJ Hayes had 6. 2 nice threes there. Was kind of quieted down after that first half in those 2 threes. Durkak with 9 points. Acuff with 6 points. Where I think there's also an impact here, and we should talk about, is the shuffle of this starting 5. I think what this starting 5 did, yes, it forced Ace more into that impactful down low player. And yes, it got Dylan off ball, but you could have done that even with Jeremiah bringing the ball up with the same starting 5 you've had. But what it did was I think it gave you a little bit better defense. Agbole had 3 blocks, Harper with 2, Bailey with 2, but Agbole had 3. And I thought what I saw on defense today was even if guys were getting beat, number one, I thought with JaMychal Davis out there on the perimeter, he's had his struggles this year in different areas, but with him out there on the perimeter and the effort that this starting 5 was giving, it kind of set the tone. I thought there was a legitimate defensive athleticism to this team at the onset of the game with that starting 5. And when you have that defensive athleticism, it really lent itself to creating things as the game wore on a little bit early there and got the offense rolling. Agbole was able to step in there and be a force in the paint even if guys got beat, and guys weren't getting beat as badly as they had been in previous games. With that starting 5, the defense was just much better, and that set the tone. I thought it was a smart move by Pike. And then, Durkak coming off the bench as the 6th man with what elements he brings in terms of rebounding, energy, defensive effort, and then what he creates on the offense with effort. Like we said, hit or miss on the offensive side of the ball. Some really nice plays. He took it strong to the rim. Another message board thing. Why can't he take it strong to the rim? He did. Comes away with points there. Other times he just can't get it done, but that's just his game. Coming off the bench as a 6th man, I thought was a benefit to the team, injected much needed energy to give guys a breather. PJ Hayes, and this is another thing we talked about. On the defensive side, what can you do to bring out the best possible defense you can? Pike changes the starting lineup, tries to get guys in there that can bring defense. It works by and large, early on. And then when you substitute in, who are you putting in there? If it's for offense, you're going to sacrifice some defense, but can you get what you want to get out of the guys you're playing? I thought the way they set up PJ Hayes in the first half for those threes, he makes 2 threes. He's quiet for the rest of the game, but he does get a lot of run in the second half. And now teams have to, now Penn State has to watch for PJ Hayes on the perimeter. They have to account for him. He's not just there and just an afterthought, but he's somebody you have to account for. That opens other guys up. Tyson Acuff as well getting shots. Part of that's effort, part of that's crashing the boards, part of that's Ace Bailey's effort on the boards. 15 rebounds for Ace Bailey, by the way. 15 rebounds. Nothing to sneeze at. I mean, Dylan Harper had 12 rebounds himself, but 3 for Ogbole, 3 for Williams, and then Somerville had 4. Somerville gets in there, and there's long stretches where the lineup changes. But just to kind of reiterate the main keys, I think, to Rutgers looking different today, new starting 5 with more defensive athleticism and more of a defensive plan, better guarding on the perimeter with Ogbole in there as that rim protector, who he is developing in that regard. Offense, getting Dylan off the ball more to make the defense have to spread out and account for everybody, which creates for everybody involved. And then when you get guys like Hayes in there, you're finding shots for him. They were moving the ball much better, creating shots for their shooters, creating shots for the guys that can make an impact. It made the defense have to account for everybody for the rest of the game, which I think made a huge difference in the game. You go through then different lineups for long stretches of time. Lathan Somerville, once again, got more minutes than Ogbole, and this was a trend we saw early in the season. Somerville brings a ton of upside when he's in the game. You know, there's some defensive plays where you're wowed. There's some offensive plays where you're wowed, and you're loving what you see. 4 rebounds from him, 4 assists, 6 points. And let's not forget Dylan Harper's 5 assists, by the way, or Jeremiah Williams' 4 assists. Those guys with Williams or Harper touching the ball and the other guy kind of off are creating for everybody, which is huge. But Lathan Somerville, there were still some defensive lapses, and I thought especially in the second half when Penn State really made this a game and really made Rutgers fans sweat this thing out. One of the main factors was, once again, Rutgers was struggling on defense in certain spots. They got winded. Guys were getting beat. I mean, there were some plays where P.J. Hayes was actually in position, but the guy still made the shot over him. Other plays, guys are just getting beat. Like, it's going to happen. It's something Rutgers has to accept. They're not going to be, you know, a great defensive team. They're not going to be upper echelon defensive team. But if they can give better defense the way they did today, put guys in better position to defend with different lineups like they did today, it's going to help a lot. It doesn't help Penn State that, you know, look, Penn State's red hot. They're 8-2 now. They came in 8-1. They just are coming fresh off beating Purdue. They are a good team for all intents and purposes thus far this season. We'll see how the season shakes out. But they weren't doing themselves any favors for a long stretches of that first half and early second half, missing at the rim, missing a lot of shots, just, you know, really having some bad rim luck like Rutgers has had many times in many seasons that we can remember. So they didn't do themselves any favors. It wasn't like it was lights out defense. But when you play defense that makes a team work for their shot and makes a team work to score, over time, good things are going to happen, right? Teams are going to miss at the rim more. Teams are going to be taking more contested shots. And when they do that, you're going to have a better chance of slowing them down and a better chance of forcing them into, you know, mistakes and getting off their game. And I think Rutgers did a good job of that. But they still caught up towards the end of the game, still made it a game because the defense had its issues. And like I said, when Somerville's in there, when Hayes is in there, you're going to sometimes have some issues on defense. They did have that, but I thought Rutgers did a good job of, you know, maximum effort and capitalizing on the offensive side of the ball, even if defense was going to struggle a little bit. And for most of the game up until the end, they were able to do that and execute that. And even though Penn State was getting their points, Rutgers was able to maintain a sufficient lead ahead of them, which was important. Total rebounds, Rutgers out-rebounded Penn State 46-32. Ace Bailey's really good numbers probably had something to do with that. So, you know, offensive rebounds, 12 for Rutgers, 6 for Penn State. 34 defensive rebounds for Rutgers, 26 for Penn State. We out-rebounded them, plain and simple. We got second-chance points. They were struggling to get much more than what they initially put up, and they weren't always connecting early on. Penn State with 9 steals. Rutgers still struggling a little bit in there. Penn State able to capitalize on some of the errant passing and errant offensive play there. 2 steals for Rutgers. 14 turnovers for Rutgers, only 6 for Penn State. So still some issues there. But, Penn State got in foul trouble early both ways. That happens, and they're probably not going to be happy with it. We were at home. They were struggling a bit. Some of their better players were struggling with foul trouble. They weren't happy with that. They seemed visibly agitated with the officiating for a good portion of the game. That probably affected their play as well. Field goal percentage, Rutgers at 48.3, 8 of 22 from beyond the arc. Penn State 9 of 23. So Penn State's shooting slightly better from three when all was said and done. It didn't seem that way early in the game. Rutgers struggled at the line, only 14 of 25. Rutgers got to the line plenty, to the point Penn State was agitated. If Rutgers had capitalized even more on that, it wouldn't have been a close game at the end. So what does this mean big picture? I think, coming down to the wire when you had a great cushion still, shows some struggle with closing games out, even at home. I think defense is always going to have its lulls and its problems, but maybe you found something when you get maximum effort and you put the most athletic defensive team out there to start and set the tone for the game. That's probably the way to do it. When you get guys like PJ Hayes out there, you have to capitalize on his abilities and his strengths. You have to find him a shot. Ace Bailey, you have to play to his abilities, and he's got to be more of a presence down low, and he was today, and it made all the difference in the game. I mean, it really did. Ace Bailey being a force around the rim made all the difference in the game. It's a huge difference when he's really playing like he's the four on the team most of the time. It's helpful to this team. And it doesn't mean he can't step out and do other things. Of course he can. That just makes him more of a diverse threat, and a variable option that teams have to account for. So it's great to see that. And I think overall, though, when you're struggling to close a little bit, you're going to have defensive woes. You're still going to have some offensive droughts when certain lineups on the floor are not executing the way you want them to. I thought later in the game, there were some times where guys were putting up shots that were not the best ones, but and just some bad luck around the rim. But another thing I noticed about this game in particular, just watching, it looked like guys like Dirk Hack were coaching some of the younger guys. There was a specific time where, it looked like Dirk Hack was explaining something to Lathan Somerville. And that wasn't the only instance I saw where it seemed like guys were explaining to other guys what they wanted them to do and trying to get them in position. And I think maybe this season started off with everybody around the fan base and in general kind of wide-eyed at these talented young freshmen and the anticipation of the showboating or the sparks and fireworks that could occur with these guys on the team was a little bit overwhelming. But now you're starting to settle in and realize what you have. You have a supremely talented freshman with a ridiculously high ceiling who's really gifted and bigger and taller with a big wingspan, who needs to be more of a presence down low, needs to be more of a presence on the boards. And you have an extremely gifted, smooth as silk, guard who can score from anywhere on the floor, whether it's shooting the three, whether it's driving to the hole, whether it's dishing the ball out and assist, that you need to make the defense account for more than just him bringing up the ball and going ISO. You need to get him off the ball. And you got guys like Jeremiah Williams who are veteran leaders who have been through it before and been a force before, who can help facilitate that. You have legitimate role players. And a guy like PJ Hayes, maybe he's not going to eat and get 15 points a game, but if you can step out and hit some clutch threes at times and not be an utter and complete liability on offense and defense for stretches, you make, again, the defense have to account for more people. And when the defense has to account for more weapons and more guys who can hit shots, it opens things up for guys like Dylan to do his thing. And he did his thing today, and it looked a lot easier for him than it has in the past few games where there were no other options and they could just key in on him, triple and quadruple team him at some points, and there was nowhere for him to go with the ball. Much different this time. Zach Martini got no run that I could see. He's been struggling really badly, and I think that if you really look at it, I don't think this is by design, but it kind of goes with my overall point. If Ace Bailey is kind of taking on the numbers and the contributions of a forward, Zach Martini is not doing that. And Zach Martini's been struggling on defense. He's been struggling to be a force on the boards or down low. And he hasn't even really been great from beyond the arc. So when you can kind of plug Ace in there more down low and then bring in a Hayes and a Durkak and a JaMychal Davis playing those guard positions for whatever reasons you have. And I think Davis, a lot of it was defense, but he did contribute a little bit on offense. I think when you do that, guys like Martini are not going to get as much run. Now, I don't think that's forever necessarily. It might be matchup dependent. Maybe he's working through a funk. But that's where we are. JaMychal Davis, 4 points. Not much else on the offensive side as far as rebounds, assists, but I thought his defense helped. I thought it helped. I thought the energy and athleticism out there helped. Tyson Acuff still working his way in. Seemed a little more active today, but still seems a step slower. It might be that injury. But again, he's another weapon. He hits those 2 shots, and they're beauties too. So, between Hayes and Acuff, you're getting those... you're getting that 12 points, and that's a difference in a game, and it makes the defense have to account for things. So when you get those guys in the game, you're getting them shots. They're making their shots. It makes a big difference. We'll see how much you can work Acuff and how much you can work Hayes into the game, given some of the issues with the speed and quickness. But hopefully you can do that because it does help. It does help. So that's pretty much it. I mean, I don't necessarily think that a close game where we struggle to close out again against Penn State at home necessarily means that, everything's all good. We still have to close out December strong, and we really have to win the rest of our 4 games in December. Seton Hall comes to town this Saturday. The following week, we've got Princeton at the Rock, and then 2 days before New Year's, that Monday, I believe it is, Columbia comes to Rutgers. You got to win those games. And Seton Hall's not good this year, but you throw everything out the window with a rivalry like that. So you got to win that game. You got to get up for that game. You got to play, and you got to close that out. And Princeton's never an easy team, especially because of how well coached they are, especially because of some of the issues we've had. You've got to win that game. It's a neutral court. We didn't perform very well last year at the Rock. Got to do what you got to do there. I'll be in the building for that game, obviously being somebody right down the block from the Rock. I will be there. And then Columbia. And then you got the Big Ten schedule. So a lot of work to do. But if this is the shift in philosophy that can help on both sides of the ball, and if this is what the team is, you're going to have some struggle areas, but you're going to be able to capitalize on your strengths. I think this next chapter in the season can lead to us closing out December strong, and that would be an absolutely great thing. So props to the coaching staff, props to the team for taking a hard look at what was going on, adjusting, finding ways to be more successful, going out and executing, and then withstanding some of the issues we had late in the game against a good Penn State team, withstanding the onslaught and being able to go out there and close and get a much-needed win. Props all around for that. Now you've got 4 games in front of you that you really can win, should win, and need to win. Let's go out and take care of business with those 4 out-of-conference games. Let's close the out-of-conference schedule strong. It was a much tougher out-of-conference schedule than previous years. You did get 1 win against an okay Notre Dame team on a neutral court. You lose on the road to Ohio State, it happens. You lose to 2 top 20 teams, it happens. Ohio State, rough to get beat that bad, but you're where you need to be if you can close out these 4 teams in December, absent that Kennesaw State loss, so things can still go well. Let's close it out. Let's do it. Let's hope the team continues to adjust with what works. Great to see these things, guys. If you haven't done so, if you're on the YouTube, click that subscribe button. We've been stagnant at 728 for a while. Let's get up towards 800 subscribers. I know there's people out there listening, not subscribed yet. If you just click that button, it doesn't cost you anything, doesn't do anything. Just click that button. It helps me a ton, though, to continue to grow and to continue to bring you content. Click that subscribe button if you're here, if you enjoy the content, if you get a good listen or a hate listen, whatever it is, click the subscribe button. And if you're listening on the podcast, stop over YouTube and do that. If you're watching on YouTube, remember we're available on every major podcast platform as an audio-only show. So go check that out. Tell a friend, share it. Let your other Rutgers brethren know if you like the show. Hey, this is something I've been listening to. You should check them out. That's how I got a lot of listeners already. Somebody posted on the message board. Go post it on one of your message boards. Post it on X. post it wherever, let people know about the show as we continue to grow. I still do have things on the horizon with football, got some transfer portal stuff. We've got the bowl game. We are obviously going to play Kansas State out at the Rate Bowl in Arizona. So things to talk about, big picture about the football season too. That's coming. Just always running around busy with my day job and all these other things, but I definitely make time to get here for my loyal listeners at Night Watch. The show's about you. I appreciate all of your support, and I will talk to all of you very soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Larry K. out.